We are hearing some Republicans call for a pause on immigration operations in the state of Minnesota. This is including Minnesota Senate Minority Leader Julia Coleman. After Alex Preddy's shooting Saturday, she wrote a letter to President Donald Trump, Governor Tim Walz, and also Mayor Fry with steps that she sees to temporarily end Operation Metro Surge. So joining me now is Senate Minority Leader Julia Coleman. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
So, of course, this all comes after yet another shooting involving federal agents. This one, 37-year-old Alex Preddy has lost his life at the hands of a Border Patrol agent, which happened, of course, on Saturday morning. Senator Coleman, can you first tell me what your immediate reaction was to seeing the video that so many of us saw Saturday?
My immediate reaction was, this is terrible. I don't want to see Minnesotans dying because the governor and the president can't come into a room and negotiate together. And that's what started me sitting there and having to write this letter out and get the thoughts out, saying enough is enough. Somebody has to be the adult in this room. And here are my proposals to start negotiations.
And you talk about proposals, what are they?
Look, at the end of the day, I think people realize that whether it's Governor Walz or President Trump, the optics here really matter. President Trump isn't going to want to remove ICE agents from Minnesota on the ground and look like they're fleeing because of public pressure. That's not a win for him. Governor Walz isn't going to want to end sanctuary status or change our policy on detainers because that'll make it look like Trump can push him to do what he wants. But I'm looking for a win for Minnesota. And so what I think that looks like is a temporary pause for 30 to 60 days of the ICE ground enforcement, get the agents off the streets in Minneapolis or even out in Chaska, in my neck of the woods. In exchange for that, the governor, the mayor, Hennepin County would agree to allow and honor ICE detainers and deportation like they do in a lot of other blue states and cities. Now, if we can deport these criminals, if we can see improvement in the communication between the administration and the cooperation between the city and the feds, then maybe that 30 to 60-day pause extends indefinitely. This gives us time for Minnesotans to have some calmness and some peace. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to make Minnesota boring again. I want us to go back to being the state of hockey and hot dish and to get some of this craziness to calm down.
Have you heard, Senator, from the feds at all? Do they seem to be open possibly to this idea?
I have been talking to someone who is working with the administration, and I was thrilled today to see that the president and the governor had a phone call earlier this morning. It's great to see that they're talking, that there's potential for progress here. And my hope is that something doesn't break these negotiations, because I don't want Minnesota to be the one that breaks.
And then on the other end, have you heard from maybe Governor Walz or Mayor Fry?
Not directly from the governor, but I have heard from other legislators across the aisle, and there seems to be this growing appetite to what can we do? Say there is this 30 to 60-day pause. You can look at the exact statute in Minnesota where A.G. Ellison has said his interpretation of it is to not work with ICE on these detainer requests. We're going to be back in session within that 30 to 60-day time frame. Is there a group of us that can work together to address this and get something on the governor's desk so that 30 to 60 days can go indefinitely and that we can just work with ICE like every other state does? There does seem to be a growing appetite for that, and I am on the phone a lot with people on all sides of the aisle, people out in D.C., and my prayer is that we can make this work and something doesn't put a break in the negotiations.
I'm interested to know, what are your colleagues in the Senate maybe saying about what's going on right now in the city of Minneapolis, Operation Metro Surge? Do they share some of the same sentiments here?
What I'm hearing from other Republican leaders is that we are not changing our stance on our belief in immigration. We did vote for Trump to come in and deport criminal illegal aliens. We did vote for stronger and stricter immigration policies. But a lot of us are saying, look, what's going on the ground, if there's constitutional infringements, if there's unnecessary violence, if there's people being maced for just standing there. I saw that happen to a reporter the other day. This is not what we voted for. And so that's why you're seeing a number of us speaking up saying, honor the Constitution, get into the negotiation room, and then Governor Walz, you need to work with the feds to enforce our laws.
The Department of Corrections, this has been a big story as well that's kind of been stuck in the middle. The Department of Corrections has told us there are 94 people with ICE detainers in county custody and a further 207 in state custody. There's kind of been a split number here. Do those numbers maybe sound right to you? Do you know anything about that you can share?
You know, that is not information that I have at my fingertips through my office. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of confusion for the American people when we have people saying one thing with the administration and another with the state. The more you look into it, the more you realize that while the state does work with ICE on occasion, there are policies that prevent these people from even remaining in our custody or getting picked up in the first place. And so I'm looking at Michigan, for example. How can we reflect our statutes similar to that? And it also goes down to the county and the city level as well, which is why I looped Mayor Fry in. We all have to be rowing the boat in the same direction here.
Yeah, speaking of Mayor Fry, you've asked that Fry and Walz adopt practical policies. You say so that we can cooperate on detaining and deporting criminal offenders. Can you explain just more about practical policies and what they should adopt here?
Absolutely. One of the things off the top of my head is there's a Minnesota state statute that A.G. Ellison has interpreted to mean that there are certain cases where we cannot detain, or there are counties that because of that interpretation, while they want to work with the feds, you know, we've had the ACLU come into Carver County here and sue them for trying to hold somebody once their bond was posted. And so they weren't able to honor that ICE detainer request because of the interpretation from this statute. So can we get a bipartisan group of legislators in there to work on this statute so that it is clear that we can work at the state, county, and city level to work with ICE detainer requests?
What are you hoping your letter does from this point on?
I am humble enough to say I don't even know if the president has seen the direct letter. I know I have gotten a message up to the administration, but I'm so happy to see that they have started talking today. And I'm happy to see other Republicans jumping on board, calling for the same thing. I had a Democrat senator share my letter and say, I can get behind this, let's go. And we've been in conversations, so my hope is that the momentum keeps on going.
All right, Senator Julia Coleman, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.